Want to lose 15 pounds or more in only 6 weeks? Dr. Joel Fuhrman's book, Eat to Live, can help you do exactly that.
Should be losing at least 2 pounds a week. Now, most people who start this program are dropping over 15 pounds the first month. I know if they come back and lost only 10 pounds, they didn't follow the program 100%, because they're going to lose 50 pounds if they followed 100%.
In this video, I'm going to break down his tips for successfully adopting the Eat to Live program and making it a lifestyle, so you can rapidly reach and maintain your ideal weight in the healthiest disease preventative way possible. These are Dr. Fuhrman's top 10 Eat to Live tips for aggressive weight loss.
And it's the reason why diets fail 95% of the time. People can't lose weight because they don't like the way they feel when they're not eating. So how do you feel good when you're not eating? You have to improve the quality of what you're eating.
1. Salad is the main dish.
One is a salad every day because there are hundreds of studies showing that the amount of raw vegetables that your person consumes correlates with their lower rates of cancer and longevity in general.
In Eat to Live, Dr. Fuhrman writes that as the amount of raw fruits and vegetables are increased, weight loss becomes more effortless.
That's the secret starting point, is to eat larger quantities of these very low-calorie foods that promote weight loss. And we're talking about green vegetables.
The more green vegetables you eat, the more weight you will lose.
Look at almost any disease, green vegetables show the most power to reverse them, especially raw green vegetables or lightly cooked when you don't overcook them.
2. Sweeten with fruit. On the plan, refined sugar and fruit juice is out, but you can satisfy your sweet tooth with fruit. You're encouraged to eat at least 4 fresh fruits a day. And remember, the sugar in fruit isn't a problem since it's packaged in fiber.
Most fruits run between 5 and 8 on the glycemic index, whereas something like white potato and white flour run around 25 to 30. Fruits have a much lower glycemic effect, and the fiber and bioflavonoids and phenols blocks the intake of glucose and the speed at which enters the bloodstream. In other words, even berries, which are relatively low in sugar and probably the most anti-cancer fruits you can eat, they have such a high level of polyphenols and anthocyanins that they actually promote the growth of bacteria in the gut that slow the absorption of glucose, not only from the berries themselves, but from other foods that have more glycemic effects in the same meal.
3. Fill up on fiber.
When you digest fiber from plants like mushrooms and beans and greens, you produce short-chain fatty acids, predominantly butyrate. In other words, the bacteria in the gut that eat up those fibers and the indigestible materials in those foods produce butyrate, and butyrate signals the hypothalamus, the base part of your brain, the apostat controller, to ratchet down and have you desire less calories. Without those nutrients, without those fibers, you're left with no appetite control. The stomach is only a liter, the size of a little over a quart. If you're eating natural foods, like fruits and vegetables and nuts and things, you can't put that many calories in your stomach. It gets filled up with fiber and get full too fast.
4. Be starch smart. Meaning, in the program, we're prioritizing fiber-rich starchy vegetables and removing refined carbohydrates, since they can increase the body weight set point.
Every time you have white rice and bagels and chips and vegan junk food, you're shortening your life because there's no nutrients in there, especially when they're high glycemic carbohydrates. There's not significant difference between white bread and marshmallows. It's the same thing. Sugar rushes into the bloodstream very rapidly, and when the sugar rushes in rapidly, the body registers that flux of calories like a bolus. Like a bolus is when a doctor injects the medications in a needle or in a drip that goes in all at one time, as opposed to hanging a bag and having the medications drip in at a little drop, taking like 8 hours to go into you. It comes in all at once. When the calories entered all at once, they have a stimulating effect on dopamine in the brain, like you snorted cocaine or took an opiate. And the brain doesn't differentiate what the cause of the stimulation is. It just registers a stimulatory effect. And over time, you become more dopamine insensitive and you desire more ice cream and more pizza and more food.
So, refined flours are out and starchy vegetables and whole grains are in. Still, to speed up weight loss, we should limit these to 1 cup a day, since they can be the culprit for those who have difficulty losing weight. However, note that Dr. Fuhrman emphasizes that very low-carb diets are a bad idea.
Taking the fruit out of your diet, making your diet low carbohydrate, stay in ketosis, is lifespan shortening. Low carbohydrate diets are dangerous long term. You don't get a free ride. You don't get something for nothing. We need the full orchestra of micronutrients playing from all the colorful plant foods on the full symphony.
5. Beans are your BFF.
All the blue zones, those areas of the world with the longest of people, always eat beans as a major source of calories. Beans are associated with longer life. They are the carbohydrate source with the most slowly digestible carbohydrate, and they have the most resistant starch. Now, the slowly digestible carbohydrates means their glycemic load is very low. Their glucose that comes into the bloodstream, the carbohydrates that get broken down, come in so slowly that they don't require a lot of insulin to digest them. When your insulin needs are less, you have less of that fat-promoting hormone circulating. The beans also contain what's known as resistant starch, more than any other food, which means the calories in beans don't all enter the body. They're resistant to enzymatic degradation, so the calories pass through you undigested, so you sensed you had those calories. It ratcheted down your appetite by that amount of calories, but those calories never came into your body, so they're a great weight loss food.
No wonder the program recommends eating at least 1 cup of beans a day. 6. Eliminate animal products.
The World Health Organization has declared processed meats, barbecue, fried foods as a Class 1 carcinogen. Class 1 carcinogen is the same category as asbestos and cigarette smoking. These aren't suspected carcinogens, they're definitive carcinogens. To eat them, you have to be insane. You have to be insane to eat these foods, they're so dangerous. Even moderate use can cause cancer. But the problem is that when you do eat them, it makes you insane. It makes you addicted, and you lose your intelligence. These carcinogenic foods don't just create cancer and heart disease, they also destroy brain cells. In doing so, they make people less intelligent, less able to concentrate, increased risk of depression and mental illness. So we're talking here about the sweets, the ice cream, the sugar, the fried foods, the grilled and processed meats, all form this umbrella of damage in the body. Now, it doesn't just damage you peripherally, it doesn't just damage your heart and your lungs and your kidney and your blood vessels, it damages your brain.
Animal protein, because it enters the bloodstream in excess protein that's already biologically complete, and we don't store the extra proteins well or turn them into fat as efficiently as fat or carbohydrate, so we turn that extra protein you eat is turned into IGF-1, which is a growth-promoting hormone, which promotes muscle growth, promotes growth in general in children, but in an adult that's fully grown is promoting cancer. And right now we have the world's nutritional researchers all in agreement that higher levels of IGF-1 is definitively linked to breast and prostate cancer, and the high amount of animal protein is definitively linked to higher levels of IGF-1.
In the book, he reminds us of the mighty mushroom, since they can make a great chewy replacement for meat. Have them every day. 7. Nuts and seeds, not oil.
Get most of your fat from whole plant foods, the whole plant, because that's the way nature designed it. When you eat the whole sesame seed, the whole almond, the whole walnut, then you get the lignins, the sterols, the stanols, the anthocyanins, the phytochemicals, the flavonoids that protect human health. And all those calories and all those fat calories don't come into the body because those fibers and sterols and stanols bind them and carry them out into the stool. So all the calories in nuts and seeds are not biologically available. On the other hand, when we refine those foods into an oil, they come into the body, those calories come into the body so quickly, and all those calories are biologically available. And because they flood the bloodstream with so much fat calories at once, the body can't burn it for energy. Instead, it has to store it as fat.
People who regularly consume nuts and seeds are more likely to be slim. The same cannot be said for oil.
All oil is 120 calories a tablespoon, and most Americans consuming between 250 and 700 calories of oil a day. Unless you're a professional athlete or physical laborer, that's going to cause you to become overweight. And being overweight is going to shorten your lifespan.
100 calories of ingested fat can be converted to 97 calories of body fat by burning a measly 3 calories.
Chronic use of oil in the diet inhibits the loss of body weight. So constantly pouring olive oil over your food makes it almost impossible to get your extra weight off.
In fact, Fuhrman says that if we looked under a microscope, we could actually see where the fat came from. It would be stored as pig fat, dairy fat, olive oil fat. So, oil is out. Instead, aim for 1 ounce of nuts and seeds a day, plus a tablespoon of flax seeds for your omega-3s. 8. Tame toxic hunger.
When you're chronically eating all the time and putting food in your mouth 24 hours a day, you're shortening your lifespan because you need period of time without food coming in for your body to maximize its repair mechanisms and to remove buildup of excesses in waste products. But most Americans can't stop eating because they hit the catabolic phase and they feel shaky and weak and hypoglycemic because their body is so toxic. And they think the answer to their hypoglycemic is more tuna fish, more egg whites, more cheese, and more meat. Because more cocaine and more snorting and more cigarettes makes you feel better, but feeling better isn't getting better. Feeling better is getting worse. Feeling worse is getting better.
To burn fat, you need to eat to true hunger.
You're mostly burning more fat towards the last third of the catabolic phase when your glycogen reserves start to go down. So if you're constantly eating food and constantly putting stuff in your mouth, you're not going to get to that fat burning. And a person who's healthy and they're a regular person who eats beans and greens and vegetables and berries and seeds and nuts and they eat a lot of healthy natural foods, they're not going to feel any hunger in the catabolic phase. They're going to feel nothing.
You do not have to carry around a calculator and a scale to figure out how much to eat. A healthy body will give you the correct signals.
Hunger is a precise computer directing you to the exact amount of calories to maintain your lean body mass. Hunger doesn't exist to cause you to gain weight. You can't put fat on your body from responding to hunger. In order to have become fat, you have to have eaten outside of the demands of true hunger. You're eating because of toxic hunger, because of emotional eating, because of recreational eating, but it wasn't hunger that drives fat on the body. True hunger signals do not drive fat. Only false or toxic hunger signals drive fat. Your tastes change. Not right away, takes months, but your taste gets stronger, your smell gets stronger. So many people, even their eyesight improves. And they start to enjoy the flavors of natural foods. They don't need the sugary junk anymore. Now lettuce and a cashew nut, an avocado, and a strawberry has flavor. Plenty of flavor.
9. Understand the process. Increasing fiber and nutrients may result in various withdrawal symptoms. These are temporary and rarely last longer than a week.
I know it's tough in the beginning. I know food addictions and I call it toxic hunger can make you feel bad when you're kind of like breaking those addictions. You could feel fatigued, you could feel weak and headachy. You could feel like you're emotionally attached to those foods and having almost a feeling of anxiety giving up the foods you've come to love. It's tough for people to make changes. But those people that do so, after enough time goes by, realize that they like their new diet as much as they like their old one. It's not about needing willpower of iron to do this. Sure, you need some commitment. You need some motivation. You need a person who intelligently wants to learn the information. But once they learn the information and they apply it, with time their tastes change. And they realize what they get is so much greater than what they gave up. And most people doing this stick with it long term. When they lose that 60 pounds or that 80 pounds, they're not going to gain it back. It's going to stay off forever. Because they realize it's not just about weight and how you look. It's not a cosmetic issue. They love the way they feel.
10. Micronutrient Excellence.
I know all the fad diets and all the gimmicks out there are trying to give people some substance or some trick or fad that's going to have them speed up their metabolic rates so they can eat more food and not get fat. But the reality is that the only proven intervention to radically extend human lifespan is to eat less calories in an environment of micronutrient excellence. When your diet has a poor nutritional quality, it's like trying to breathe less air. You always want more food than you really should be having because your diet is low in nutrients. You're eating as much as you want. You just don't want as much when you're exposed to a very high micronutrient exposure.
This is what it all comes down to for longevity as well as achieving and maintaining your ideal weight.
You have to apply yourself here. You have to learn. You have to know the why. You have to become a nutritional expert, and you have to be able to articulate why you're doing this to other people. And then you're going to be able to stick with it. Only when you become the expert and you can adequately articulate why you're doing this to other people.
Hope you enjoyed these tips. I'll be making more videos like this, so subscribe to watch more.